Guys, today is a momentous day for Israel and also for the world. We have seen the remaining hostages return home from Gaza. Thank God. Trump visited Israel today. We had just a ton of stuff go down. This is not our normal broadcast. We haven't been broadcasting during Sukkot. And we're headed into Simchat Torah here in a couple of hours. But we wanted to sit down and break down what's been happening today. So Britt joined us here on the eve of Simchat Torah. We have our lulav, still our 4 species that we're doing in the sukkah this morning. And we got to kind of rejoice this morning in a way that we haven't in a really long time because of incredible news. Like I said, all of the remaining living hostages are now on Israeli soil, reunited with their families, and the bodies of those that did not make it, unfortunately, are supposed to be returned as well. You want to do a special blessing?
Yeah, let's do it. And there's so much joy right now in Israel. It feels like so many prayers, and it's kind of ironic that we're about to go into Simchat Torah.
Yeah.
And that was exactly 2 years ago when the attack happened. So there's a traditional blessing they do here in Israel called the Shehecheyanu. And we thought it'd be awesome to do it here on the show in this moment. Basically, the Shehecheyanu is done anytime it's like a really momentous occasion. And that'll make sense just in the words of the blessing. So, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'gianu lazman hazeh. Amen. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has kept us alive, sustained us, and brought us to this time.
Could that not be a more fitting blessing to give than right now? It's incredible. And I think all of us today, which we'll get into this more in a little bit, are having to compartmentalize in that, as we've talked about on the show, the deal that's happening to make this possible is very complicated, very nuanced, and probably isn't in Israel's best interest. But at the same time, bringing back the captives of Israel from a foreign land, not from a foreign land, but from the hands of the enemy, is just a tremendous thing, and cannot imagine the joy that's being felt by the families of these hostages that were brought home, and just the nation is celebrating as if this isn't their own family. And so we kind of have to separate the two, and we'll get into the nuance.
There's the joy of today. And we want to really embrace that. But then there's also the let's zoom out. What does this look like for 10 years from now? What does it look like for 15 years from now? And we'll get into more of that. Yeah,
very much so. So before we do that, we're going to work our way through a couple of clips of stuff that have happened today. We started earlier this morning with Trump getting on Air Force One to leave for the States. That's kind of what kicked all of this off. And early this morning, we had rallies that took place across Israel. We had thousands of people gathered in Hostage Square, holding a vigil even before the sun came up this morning to pray, to stand. There was a lot of anxiety here. It was like, is this actually going to happen? Right. You're brought to this momentous occasion. Is this actually going to go through? Thank God it did. But we saw a lot of people gathered to pray. There was a rally that happened at the site of the Nova Music Festival, where we had thousands of people gather with their lulavs, their 4 species, and they gathered and prayed as the sun was coming up in that spot where so many people were butchered and taken captive. They prayed for them to return home. We have this footage here. It's super cool.
Everybody in Israel, like we said, it's mixed feelings as far as the deal, but as far as the hostages coming home, just so many, like this next clip here, of these little boys getting ready for their dad to come home.
Yeah. It's so crazy that we have children that have missed, half their lives with their parents at this point. I don't know how old this little boy is, but probably 4 or 5 years old. At this point, he's basically missed half his life with his dad. Insane. And he's getting him back. It's like getting him back from the dead, basically.
Yeah.
There was videos that went out this morning of them preparing, hospital rooms for family members, making them as warm, as inviting as possible. I know the Israeli government put together care packages with everything that they would need when they got to the hospital: bags, computers, tablets, phones, because a lot of these people are basically going to have to start over from scratch. The president of Israel left a handwritten note for each of the hostages. Bibi Netanyahu and Sarah, his wife, they both left handwritten messages for each one of the hostages. And the Israeli government, they lined the streets of Jerusalem with Israeli and American flags. There was a lot of prep that went into this because Trump is coming to visit as well. That led to, it was really kind of crazy. We were watching it this morning, is this countdown of, you had the prep for the hostages, and then you had Trump landing, and then the actual hostage release. So Trump,
which that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump was supposed to come, earlier on in his term, and ended up canceling that last minute. And so this is Trump's first visit to Israel during the current term. So this is a big deal for Israel.
It very much is. And as you can see from this clip right here, some Israelis lined the beach with this thank you message to President Trump. And supposedly he actually could see it from his airplane when he came in.
They actually diverted on their way in to fly
so
over
actually see
and see this from the air.
So then that leads us to the actual hostage release. And we were all on pins and needles this morning of like, is this going to come through? Are they going to survive? Is Hamas going to attempt some sort of last minute?
Are they going to continue the psychological, holding it out there? Which, even with that, I saw this morning that Hamas actually started video calling some of the family members, having their loved one that they have not seen in 2 years on video call because they wanted to be the first ones to. And I know for those families, I mean, these people have been put through hell. Yeah. Just not knowing, what do I say? I'm on the phone with Hamas right now. That has been, I mean, just talk about, you can't even imagine, like, are they just holding this out there? Am I actually going to be able to see them? And so, yeah, leading up to this moment of people actually, they're handed over the Red Cross. They're with the IDF.
Then you'd have these extended media blackouts where you say that they were handed over, and then we go 30 minutes without hearing a single thing. Right. But we have these clips of them being handed over to the Red Cross, and Hamas was not. They had said they would not make a ceremony. They wouldn't. They basically just kind of hand them over quietly and not do one of their big releases. They towed the line for sure. They had thousands of people out in the streets, as you can see from these videos, harassing the Red Cross vehicles. You can see we have one of the Red Cross vehicles pulling in here, and Palestinians are knocking on the windows and banging on them, and just continuing the psychological warfare all the way out. But then we tracked these Red Cross vehicles all the way out of Gaza, and they finally left the space of the enemy and entered back into Israel, which is just a huge sigh of relief. And as soon as they did, Gazans erupted in celebration that, I mean, honestly, I think for a good few of them, they're probably just relieved that the bombing might be over, maybe, that they may be able to move on to their next era, because they were losing. Hamas was losing in this war.
The ones that hated Hamas, it wasn't because they loved Israel.
Right, yeah.
They hated Hamas because
they hate Israel.
Dragging on, and it's not fun anymore.
Yeah. Hate Israel and Hamas. But starving Gazans. We have this clip released this morning of the celebration, and we saw that Gaza is for sure starving. There's no food in these celebrations at all. I'm joking. As you can see in the video, there's piles, mountains of food. And I don't know if you saw yesterday. I think it was yesterday. UNRWA,
the overweight guy trying to unload the.
Oh, I didn't see that. But UNRWA, the UN refugee organization for Palestinians, they've been claiming that there's a famine in Gaza for months now.
Right.
And I think it was just yesterday they came out and said, well, we actually have enough food stockpiled in Gaza to last for 3 months.
Yeah. So, yesterday with the IDF's withdrawal back to the second line, a bunch of aid trucks came in, which was a part of the international push, we need to get aid in, which has been a whole propaganda thing to.
But even before that is when UNRWA said we have enough food to last for 3 months.
But the clip I'm referring to, it's this guy that's very overweight in Gaza trying to unload aid off of one of the trucks. Clearly, not the kind of situation that you would see in actual aid crisis situations in other places in the world.
Then we have the hostages were transported to helicopters, military helicopters, flown into Israel up to the hospital. There's this breathtaking moment right here of a helicopter actually coming down with crowds waited to greet them. I can't imagine what that would have been like to be up in the helicopter coming home to your family, at your immediate family, and then also your broader national family. It's so many millions of people just ecstatic to finally see you again.
I want to point out something that's kind of a just blow your mind perspective that's been throughout this whole war. When we went into Gaza, I was shocked by 2-hour drive from here to the border, 10-minute drive inside to where the hostages are. Literally, these people's family members that they've not seen in 2 years that are inside of Hamas captivity, they're not in another world away. They're literally 2.5-hour drive from, an hour-and-a-half drive from the center of Israel. It's just mind-blowing. It's like they're right there, but out of reach, and being tormented by Hamas.
Yeah. You imagine having your family just 2 hours away for 2 years and not being able to see them.
No.
And that leads us to the very, very emotional meetings that happened when these hostages finally were able to get to their families. We'll play through some of these clips here because it's so cool.
זה קרה, הם פה. אתה חייב לשתות קצת, נשמה, טיפה.
חיים שלי, אתה אלוף גיבור, כפרה עליך אני, כמה החיות שלך מחכות לראות אותך, ואילנה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. לשמחה, חיים שלי, האור שלי, הלב שלי. די, זה מאחורינו כבר.
Absolutely incredible. And also, I just kind of want to take a second to say that, our hearts go out and our prayers are with the families who had loved ones that didn't come home, because there were a good few that didn't make it, that died in Gaza at the hands of Hamas. And I'm sure it's very bittersweet for them at this point to know that there was the possibility that their family could have come home. I'm sure they're also rejoicing with the ones that did, but also for all of you that have family that didn't come home, our hearts are with you in this, and may God bring you comfort. Trump landed as this was happening. I think basically, like, as hostages were coming home, they came home in 2 waves. We had a batch of 7, a batch of 13, and 2 separate from 2 separate locations. Trump landed. This is what this looked like. Obviously, Israel was the Israeli government. This is a really big deal. They gave him a tremendously warm welcome on the tarmac. We have this live stream going right here from the Jerusalem Post where we're following the trucks bringing hostages in from Gaza in one corner. And on the split screen, we have a crowd waiting. I think it was in Hostage Square that were viewing the live streams as they're happening. So the Israeli public. And then we have the tarmac here with Trump coming in. We see Jared Kushner and Ivanka, and then also Steve Witkoff, Bibi Netanyahu, Sarah Netanyahu, and they're walking the red carpet to greet President Trump as he comes in. Then we have the moment where Trump steps out of the airplane and greets Israel for the first time after this deal has happened. And like we said at the beginning, we don't know where this is going from here. There's a lot of sketchy details of this plan, but Trump did just bring the remaining hostages home, and for right now in Israel, it's a tremendous feeling. Trump is greeted as a massive hero here, stepping into Israel. He knows it. The Israelis know it, and him walking down the stairs of this airplane was pretty incredible this morning. Very, very warm welcome.
Yeah, well, and just the fact that this went through, all of the hostage deals, so-called deals that have been put forward so far have been just terrible for Israel. This one, like we said, we'll get into that more, the negative sides of it, but this has been the best, of the deals presented, I would say by far. The other ones were just like, okay, nothing, basically, give up everything. And so obviously a huge part of this is just seeing the hostages come home, which is a moment that, you can't put a value on that.
Right.
You can't say, is it worth, is it not? Obviously, that has to be taken into consideration by governments and stuff. But for today, today is a day of rejoicing for all of us here in Israel.
Yeah. And it looks like they kind of broke protocol. I don't know if this has happened before, but Bibi and his wife actually got in the same vehicle as Trump, and they were invited to ride with him to the Knesset. And they had this massive parade all the way to the Knesset. And you can see by this video here of Trump entering the Knesset as well that he got an amazingly warm welcome. They say, from what I heard, this was the longest standing ovation in the Knesset on record, as far as I know, when he came in.
Yeah, you can see the excitement is high. Even the guys that adamantly opposed, this agreement. Today's a big day, and for us, today is a big day. Trump pushed this through. He made it happen.
After the standing ovation in the Knesset, we had speeches by Bibi Netanyahu, speech by Trump, and a couple of other people as well. And all of this is actually going down as we're recording. So we'll have a lot more detail about what they actually said later on in the week. You can go watch the live streams of the speech. We're trying to kind of cover this as this is happening. Before we launch into what we feel like is coming with the rest of this deal, Britt put together some stats real quick on the war so far up until where we are right now. Yeah, break those down.
Yeah. Well, and last night I've got a friend that was just in Gaza. He literally got out, and we were together last night talking. And I asked him, what does this feel like for all the IDF soldiers? Because since 7th of October, 915 soldiers have been killed. Israel is not a big country. Like, mandatory service here. Everybody goes in. Literally everybody in Israel either has a family member or a friend that has had someone in their family die in this war. And so that's something that is just, it's huge. I mean, even for us, like, we know people that have died in this war. Yeah. Here, right here in the community that we're next to, they just 3 weeks ago, young couple just got married. Literally, were at home for a week. He's in Gaza, gets killed. Just heartbreaking for the whole country. And so I was talking to him, and he said three things that every soldier cares about: sleep, food, and home. So he said it on a basic level. The agreement, all of them are super ecstatic that, hey, we could be done. The hostages are coming home. That was one of the huge things that they're all fighting for. And so in that regard, yes, they're all excited. But then on the other hand, what did all these guys die for? These 915 soldiers that laid their lives down for the country. Is this going to happen again in 5 years? Is this going to happen again in 10 years? So I want to run through these statistics real quick. 915 IDF soldiers have been killed in this war. 6,333 wounded.
Wow.
So this is people that have lost limbs, is people that have been wounded, differing degrees. 6,333. That's a lot of people. Like I said, Israel's not a very big country.
Yeah.
On October 7th, so just in regard to the hostages, on October 7th, we had 251 hostages were taken, 1,195 people killed. So just under 1,200 people. Since October 7th, 168 hostages have been brought back to Israel alive. And so, and those of you guys that have been following this story, there's been a lot of different things. There was that first push to bring back the women and children. 105 were released in 2023 in exchange for a ceasefire. You had 5 that were released by Hamas kind of outside of the main framework with Israel through different agreements with other countries. 8 that were rescued in an IDF operation. I remember that day. That was super exciting to see that. It was, I'm sure there's going to be movies that come around out about that eventually. So 8 rescued by the IDF, 30 released during just in January of this year. And the last 20 living hostages are released today, just a few hours ago, brought back to Israel. So then hostages that were, Israel doesn't know yet, because they haven't done all the testing on the ones that were killed or brought back, their bodies brought back. There were 58 hostage bodies that were brought back to Israel. They don't know if those were killed on October 7th and their bodies just taken hostage, or if they were actually killed in captivity inside of the Gaza Strip. 3 hostages were sadly, tragically killed by friendly fire from the IDF. If you guys remember that story, there were 3 hostages. They assumed that they were Hamas members. They were shot. The IDF brought back 47 in just through military operations, finding tunnels, finding things where these hostages had been killed or their bodies taken. 8 were returned in that same 2025 prisoner swap earlier this year. And then it's estimated 25 that are still in Gaza, and as this plan moves forward, should be brought out. So that's kind of the, since October 7th up until now, those are the stats.
As opposed to, what did Trump say the other day? Over 50,000 Hamas terrorists have been killed. I think was what came from the Trump administration, what their estimate for how many Hamas have lost. It's a tough thing in Gaza because Hamas is not just an organization that rules the people. They come from the people. So for every Hamas terrorist that gets killed, another one rises to take their place. But Israel did manage to kill, we just asked, what did those soldiers fight for? They managed to get the leverage on Hamas to bring back all of these hostages that did come home. And they killed a lot of Hamas terrorists. We would have liked to see, I think the really hard part here in Israel is Hamas, since they took power in Gaza, have attacked Israel over and over and over again, culminating in what happened on October 7th. And Hamas is not destroyed. I think all of our hope and prayer was through this war, this could be the time that Hamas was completely destroyed. And with a deal going through, as ecstatic as we are to see the hostages returned, Hamas is still alive. They still operate. They still have funding. They still have weaponry. Meaning, God forbid, October 7th could happen again. We could see another attack from Gaza. We don't know how long it will take, but it is possible. And the deal that we're looking at supposedly lays the framework to keep that from happening. But as we've seen over and over again, like up in Lebanon, like in many other parts of the world, when you have nations involved that pledge to keep peace for another nation and bring in peacekeeping forces, it very rarely goes as is pledged, because you give it a little time, people lose interest. You have a lot of combating ideas from different nations, and it tends to go south. And I think it's difficult for people here in Israel to put their faith in Qatar and put their faith in the United Arab Emirates,
not the first time.
Egypt and Jordan for their security in Gaza. I think that's one of the really difficult parts here is okay, Trump may do an amazing job defending Israel in Gaza with an international peacekeeping force. Maybe that could happen. But Trump's only president for another, 2.5 years. So then who takes office after that? And what does this look like? Israel's here, God willing, forever. And being subject to the, to the coming and going of different administrations in the United States and other parts of the world is really, really difficult. And this war was not finished here. Right. I think that's the difficult part.
Well, people have been asking like, hey, what's you guys' prediction on what could happen? And to me, I go, we don't actually have to predict. We already have the data.
Yeah.
Like this is not the first time this has happened. We're not just throwing out random, hey, if we, with the whole like land for peace kind of thing, people act like if we create a Palestinian state in Judea and Samaria, everything will be great. It's like, are we literally having this conversation?
Yeah.
That's what happened with Gaza. And I think the same thing with this. This is not the first time. You had over and over and over every several years rocket attacks from Gaza. IDF goes in, destroys a certain level of Hamas infrastructure, loses soldiers, Hamas members are killed, comes back out a few years later to the point that thousands of Israelis are constantly going to the bomb shelters from rocket attack. And I think going into this war, everybody said, that's enough. We are not going back to that again. And so that's the big question right now is, like you said, is this actually different?
Right.
Or is this just the same, it's a new generation of people that haven't dealt with this before and so are making the same mistakes.
It's tough to see Hamas celebrating after this. I think that's the hard part is there's something inside of you, just a logic that says if Hamas is celebrating, we didn't really win. And I know they're going to force a celebration no matter what happens, but when the attack was this severe, Israelis obviously and rightfully and justly want to see Hamas dead in the streets. That's what we need to see when evil raises its head. Needs to be stopped.
I think even more than that, the ideology of Hamas dead in the streets. Yeah. Because this is not, a lot of people in the West don't understand this. When you take a child and you have, when they're, 4 years old, 5 years old, dip your hands in red paint and say, I'm going to go kill Jews. Yeah. And you put them in a schooling system that teaches all your problems are Israel. This is literally the reason for everything. A lot of people in Gaza literally believe that Israel massacred their grandparents. They stole their land. Yeah. They, and the list goes on of why any problem that they could have, is Israel. And I was talking to, like I mentioned, my friend who just got out of Gaza yesterday. He said in Gaza, the buildings were visibly different. Who was a part of Hamas and who wasn't. He said so it was super simple for the military going in. The buildings that were, houses of Hamas members were luxurious, very nice. And so you have these Gazans that are not picking up on the fact that, hey, tons of aid has come into here. Tons of money has come into here. And what are we doing with it? Building tunnels, preparing for wiping the Jews off the map. And that's the entire goal. And so you're saying even for the children, that's what they live to do. Yeah. These are your problems. Israel's at fault. We're going to wipe them off the map. Yeah. And so I think that's what everybody wanted to see dead. Yeah. It's really hard to make peace with somebody that's what they're promoting to their children. That's what they're promoting to the next generation.
I think at the end of the day, like, we recognize that this is complex and there's a lot of politics involved. It's a very difficult situation. I wouldn't want for anything to be in BB's shoes or anyone in the government right now. But honestly, at the end of the day, as complex as all of this is, Gaza is part of the land of Israel that was given to them, promised to them by God. Yeah. And God says, we just read in the Torah portion, just this last week, do not make a covenant with the people who dwell with you in the land. Like, do not make a covenant with the other nations that dwell with you because of this. Honestly, it's because of this. And Gaza is the land of the Philistines. The Palestinians have taken on, Palestine. Philistine, it's basically comes from the same word. That's what the Romans, when they came up with that word Palestine, it was coined based on that name, the Philistines. And we have this biblical enemy living in Israel's midst. And at the end of the day, until Israel is willing to say, this is our land promised to us by God, and you are our enemies, and until Israel takes control and settles it as part of the land of Israel, these wars will continue. It's like the time of the judges. We will continue to see these wars over and over and over again. And I think in this conflict, something felt different than before. And it felt like Israel was actually rising to the occasion to take Gaza as part of the land that God promised them, and to see it revolve back into kind of a traditional peace deal, hostage swap, a lot of nations involved, is disappointing. It's difficult to watch. So that's why we're skeptical, because Gaza does belong to Israel. It was promised to them by God, and another peace deal that leaves Hamas in power in Gaza is it's difficult to see. So
Yeah.
from here, Trump is headed to Egypt for a peace conference that includes Egypt, it includes Qatar, it includes Mahmoud Abbas from the Palestinian Authority, which is confusing because the Palestinian Authority was not supposed to be a part of any of this, according to Bibi Netanyahu, according to the Trump administration. We have the French president, we have Turkey, the UK, Spain, Italy, European Union, Arab League, Secretary General. We have Jordan, we have Kuwait, we have Bahrain, we have Indonesia, we have Germany, we have Greece, we have the Armenian Prime Minister, we have Hungary, Pakistan, Canada, Norway. The list goes on. This is a peace summit that Trump is convening in Egypt with representatives of all these countries, plus more. There's a few more in there as well. And they are going to craft a new way forward for the Middle East. Call me crazy, but I'm skeptical that any of these nations have Israel's best interest in mind. And as happy as we are to see these hostages released, I'm skeptical. I may just leave it at that.
Well, to me, I'm just kind of baffled by the level of interest. And I think that this, for us that believe in God and the Bible, it's really clear why there's this level of interest. But that you would have a plan that Trump and these other world leaders are going to be the key, members on this committee to help govern Gaza. Gaza is the size of, like, literally when we were in there, we drove from the Israeli border to the Mediterranean Sea in about 10 minutes. And I was shocked by that. I was like, wait, what? That was it? That was the whole thing? And you have all these world leaders lining up to be on this committee, to be involved with managing what happens in this section of God's land. Do you see that level of interest anywhere else in the world?
Proof for God's existence.
Right.
That Israel is God's chosen nation is the fact that so many nations around the world actually care this much about what happens in Israel. Israel's a focal point for the war, and it could not be illustrated more clearly with what we're seeing happening here in Israel, and then here in a couple of hours in Egypt as well. I want to end with, I found this post on social media, someone sent it to me, and I feel like it fairly accurately sums up where we're at with this peace agreement. He said, I will celebrate the hostages coming home in the short-term end of bloodshed with the rest of my nation, but Gaza will eventually revert back into war until these 7 points are met, just as it did in 2005, 2008, 2009, 2012, 2014, 2021, 2023 through 25, where we also traded for short-term comfort in exchange for prolonging the problem, and each time it got worse. So these are his 7 points that Israel will have to meet before this Gaza conflict ends. He said, first, Israel has to take full control of Gaza. They have to remove Hamas. They have to free all hostages, restore justice for all inhabitants, allow Jews to move back to Gaza, rebuild Gaza for all civilians, and make sure there is freedom of speech and good education for all. We could all learn from the past, but unfortunately, the majority of our nation would rather relive it. To the future victims of terror from Gaza and future hostages, I'm sorry our generation had to do this again. It's harsh, but there's a level of truth to it. Is that as amazing as it is to see these hostages return, we have to kind of separate that from the fact that we are setting ourselves up to do this again. Every time you capitulate to terrorists and release and do hostage exchanges, you're incentivizing them to do it again, to take more hostages, to have an even more a more blatant display of violence than they did before, because it worked. It worked for them.
Right. Yeah. And for whatever the bigger interests are, I think there's a lot of questions with that. Does Qatar have interest in this? What pushed Hamas to do this? You know, what are the bigger, for whoever is benefiting, this sends a clear message. It worked.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, like Ben says, happy as we are to see these, you know, hostages come home, and there's no level of value you could put on that.
Yeah.
It's also weighty to know, for one, all of these terrorists that are being released.
Yeah.
Even back into Judea and Samaria, where we are. This is, I mean, that's tough. You know, these families of people that have been killed. There's just a lot of in this agreement that are not going to be good for Israel in the long term, because that ideology is still very alive and well. And that idea of wiping Israel off the map is very alive, not only in the Arab radical Islamic neighbors, but also on college campuses, on, you know, on the international stage of people that would rather see Israel just, you know, wiped off the map.
Yeah.
I think that's where we come in, though. Those of us that believe in God and the Bible, to actually stand. There's a reason we're standing with Israel. It's not because they're perfect, not because they're always right. It's because we believe in God's promises.
That's right.
And that God is always faithful to his promises. That's why the nations rage. That's why these kings, you know, what's going on here? I want to have my, you know, say in it. Jerusalem's been conquered more than any other city in the world.
Yeah, basically.
Why? You know? Because the level of interest in God's land and what God's doing. And so I think for us to believe in the Bible, it's like, no, we're going to actually stand for this narrative because God's in it. And and we know who wins, you know? God always wins. So.
Yeah. We know God will win. It's just a matter of how much pain we have to endure, you know, due to our own decisions. And the more we stand with Israel, the more we encourage Israel to do the right thing. It gives them the strength that they need to actually do the right thing. You see, when believers stand with Israel and say, this is your land, and you have a right to defend it. You have a right to conquer it. You have a right to build cities, to inhabit it, to plant fruit trees. The more believers that stand with Israel in that, the more it gives them the courage to stand and do the right thing. So God willing, that we don't know where this is going to go. We don't know what's going to happen from here. God willing, it won't be as dire as it could be. Hopefully God will have mercy, and we'll see good things come out of everything that's happening right now. But
yeah, amen.
Guys, before we go, bringing you accurate information about what is happening in Israel, in the Middle East, like we do in these videos. It's not easy. It's not cheap. And we'd like to ask you that if you find value in this channel and the information that we bring you every single week, please consider joining our team in producing these videos by supporting us monthly. If you're able to do this, we have a special access Telegram group with behind the scenes content. We have updates on our volunteer work in Israel. We have special store discounts, prayer requests, and more specifically for our monthly donor team. If you would like to join us, you can go to theisraelguys.com/donate or click the link in the description below. Thank you so much for all of your support. And as always, thanks for watching.